coming to this session. My name is Liz Branigan. I'm the Director of Learning and Teaching Innovations with the Learning Transformations Unit. I'm very happy to say that one of my areas of portfolio responsibility is supporting the teaching staff who teach into our Open Universities Australia teaching program. And I'm also very happy to say that we have recently, this year, started a community of practice to bring some of these teaching staff together in ways that they haven't had a lot of opportunity to engage with each other before, because they're quite dispersed across different faculties and across different teaching areas. So this group that we have in front of us, and also including Brenton up on the screen here, are a group who have come together through that process, and I'm really pleased that they've decided to present this panel today, because I think in one of the earlier sessions this morning, Anthony Osborne from the Student Union referred to OUA as Swinburne's lost child or forgotten or abandoned child. So we want to give that child a voice this morning. So I would like to welcome the panel. From our first speaker will be Sandra White from. Oh, sorry. Our first speaker is Brenton. Digital inclusion all the way.
I'm the lost child.
The lost child. Brenton is our Swinburne student OUA rep, and he's joining us from his location in Adelaide this morning. After Brenton speaks, we're going to be joined by Sandra White from Faculty of Health, Arts and Design. Then we've got a joint presentation by Barbara Evans and Burkhard Roden from Faculty of Business and Law. And finally, we've got Susan Roberts from the library, who particularly supports online education. So that's our panel for this morning. I'd like to welcome them, and please begin, Brenton. Thank you.
So what do students say they like? A lot of things, but most of it doesn't work for all of them. There were some themes that ran through the discussion I had with OUA students, particularly lectures, assignments, discussion boards, and tutorials. In discussing lectures, some students found that they learn more effectively while they watch and listen to a lecture, and so they miss when they're not available. But there are some qualifiers. So detractors for lectures include poor quality recordings and a lack of being able to see what's being presented. But lectures are appreciated when they also contain only the relevant information, that is, excluding the dates for on-campus students and things that don't really relate to us at all. Assignment discussions revolve around two main things: the group work and feedback from tutors. Group work is understood to be necessary, but OUA students can find it quite stressful due to the ability or lack thereof to communicate with fellow students. Those that experience groups working well do find them to be enjoyable and challenging, but when you can't talk to people, it gets problematic. When we're assigned to groups, it's problematic, but when we can choose our own groups, it tends to work better, and that's done with some subjects, so it is something that you do. On a more general note, with assignments, constructive feedback is really, really appreciated by students. When they take the time to make qualifying statements beyond basic comments, it allows us to apply that later on, and so it is appreciated when you do that. And when we move on to discussion boards, forced participation models don't tend to result in positive feedback. So a directed forum seems to be more useful. But this is going to depend on one key element. Again, it's your tutors. Having useful input from them, pointing out flaws in our discussions and adding legitimacy to our opinions is all useful. We could otherwise just be on Facebook discussing whatever we wanted. An interesting thing is what happens when your discussion boards are not consistent. An example I might provide is when tutors provide inconsistent answers to referencing questions. That resulted in students going to Facebook and asking other students, which is not particularly useful when it comes to marking. So when your tutors are invested in quality control, prompting for discussions, and set expectations on when they'll be there, it's very useful. Lastly, our tutorials. Collaborate is great when it works, when we can hear the audio and when we're also able to participate. A variety of times for attending is useful so that we can actually get there. There's a variety of students, from parents to people working full-time and so on. But when the technology is working and we can attend, it's the tutor again that's going to add the value. Reading PowerPoint slides is not generally something OUA students say they respond to, and a tutor who provides information beyond the textbook and draws students in through their experience beyond the textbook is highly regarded. Beyond these, some things like the love of the library has not been mentioned. Yet, if you ask anyone, the library support, it's all about positive feedback. So topics we cover when we discuss what we like are really only those things we've been exposed to. If you'd asked me what I liked just after going to any other university subject, I most definitely would have mentioned the ease of Blackboard. Some students don't agree, but I do, with myself, obviously. Most of our administrative requirements are presented in a way that's simple to find, yet there are some problems creeping in from time to time. Assignment handouts sometimes have incorrect information, and welcome messages on Blackboard can sometimes have the wrong year mentioned. The welcome message is a minor thing, but assignments can send us down the wrong path for a while. To summarise, I'd like to say OUA students like Swinburne adding value to our experience. We can purchase textbooks and read stuff on our own, but there's value in the interactions we get with both staff and students.
Thanks, Brenton. And I've got a few things to respond to what Brenton raised. But firstly, I'd like to say that students, or we consider students on OUA not to be passive receptors. You know, we want them to actively engage and make good use of their time, their effort as well. I agree with Brenton that the layout of the Blackboard sites can be really important for ease of navigation, and this then helps students focus on the content rather than where do I find this? With regard to lectures, early on in the piece with OUA, it was the norm to just put up the lecture slides that were on campus. You know, we've had to refine that over the years because, as Brenton said, it talks about assessment dates, which is not appropriate to the OUA students. So I teach a large cohort of first-year statistics students, and so what we've introduced are 10-minute snapshot videos with accompanying slides so that students can download these and view them offline in their own time, you know, because if they're working full-time, etc., we know that they need that flexibility. We've also introduced a timeline rather than just the unit outline information. So we've collated information from our weekly areas learning materials and put that into a timeline that the students actually can download, stick up on the fridge or the back of the toilet door or wherever it's convenient, so that they can check off things and then they still know what they have got left to do. So it helps to keep them on track. We actually don't have group work in statistics, and we do recognise that that can be an issue in some other areas, and it's probably one of the reasons why we don't do it, purely because, as Brenton said, it can be hard to maintain contact with people, particularly across time zones. You know, we have people in this study period from Colombia, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and obviously rural areas of Australia as well. Facebook can be a real issue for us. Students like to talk off the discussion board, but we've also made mention in our welcome videos and our tips and things to remind them that it's a great space to have a bit of discussion, but if they really want clarification of concepts, then perhaps it's best to use the dedicated discussion boards. And because we have large numbers of enrolments in each of our study periods, we operate in all 4 study periods across the year, we have dedicated tutors that staff the discussion boards 6 out of 7 days a week, and occasionally they can't help themselves and they peek in on the 7th day as well. The discussion boards we've broken down into different forums. As I said, we know that students are working at different paces, and so this helps contain the information for someone who might not be up to Module 4, they're still on Module 2, they can just be looking at that information. So it helps contain and still encourage them. We also encourage students to try and answer each other's questions on the discussion board, because that really helps them consolidate their own knowledge. And of course, as tutors, we would go in and make sure that any misinformation is quickly corrected. one of the issues with OUA that we find is that lack of participation. We've heard speakers talk about attrition rates and lack of retention, and that, of course, is a big deal with OUA students. And we have to deal with that each and every study period. We do put in strategies like sending out emails after the first couple of weeks to those who haven't logged in, but hey, if they haven't logged into the Blackboard, they're probably not looking at student emails as well. But you do what you can, and then we can go to the learning transformations and get some assistance in that regard. So one other thing too is we always recognise that not all students actively engage on the discussion board. They may not post a question, but we know they're out there, and we actually tailor the response to that wider audience. We're trying to engage those students. If there's not much happening, we'll even post messages ourselves to encourage and motivate the students. I get to do the next bit as well. So this is, how do we put this, as academics, how do we actually put that all into process? Because it's not something that happens overnight. You can't just drop an on-campus unit into an OUA forum and expect it to work perfectly. And of course, you're always doing continual tweaking. So we attempt to motivate and encourage our students by having really good tutors. You know, we invest in the training of the tutors. We want our tutors to be passionate and who can reach out to that wider audience, not just whoever's asking a particular thing. So we're always thinking about all of the students. The quality of our staff, again, this comes down to training. We need, of course, to have, to ensure that our tutors have a good knowledge of the material, good access to all of our materials, in a timely manner as well, particularly if we've decided, oh, we think we'll do something different, we need to make sure that we involve our tutors. The conveners and the tutors work as a team. We work with them. They don't work for us. We're all working for the students, so we like to have that team environment. And so we let tutors know that we like them to be able to know that they can rely on us for anything. If they've got a little issue, a big issue, they can come to us and we'll give them help. I talked about the flexibility of monitoring the discussion board 6 and 7 days, or 6 and 7 days out of the week, to allow flexibility for the students, but this actually also allows flexibility for the staff, our tutors. Some tutors go in at midnight to answer discussion board posts. They may be working full-time as well. So we try and balance it across the whole student and teaching staff. With student feedback, it does, as Brenton said, need to be timely, and it also needs to be consistent. And with our submissions via Turnitin, we can use quick comments for a lot of the time, but we do try and make some personalised comments to make that encouragement, you know, to the students. Let them know that they're doing some really good work. To be effective, as I said, we work as a team. We're continually improving our website, and each iteration, as I said, we work for study periods across the year as well as our on-campus iterations. And so each different convener, because one person can't do it all obviously, if there's something that's come up in a particular study period, we'll let the next person taking over. This is something that we saw starting to happen. You know, how can we address this? And so we're, as I said, we're working as a team, and we're trying to ensure that everybody is on board with everything that we're doing. We're always thinking too, as I said, I teach into the first year statistics unit, but we know that there's further units as well. So we're looking at consistency across our website designs. Obviously there's going to be differences, but if we can make some of it a bit more manageable for students to be able to navigate the website, they come into the next unit or the next stats unit and go, oh, yep, that's familiar. I know where I'm starting to find things. And so we include our tutors and all of our other teaching staff into any of our discussions about how can we do this better? How can we make it better all around? And so we in this way too, we're also thinking about how can we translate anything from our on-campus, say tutorials, how can we put this into an online environment and make it effective? But it works in the reverse as well. We can actually use some of the things that we've implemented, like the snapshot videos and so forth, in our online environment and include it in our on-campus. So although they might have the echo recordings as well, we've got these snapshots of concepts so that the students can just look at that if that's their issue. I think I may have covered everything I need to cover, and I'll welcome your questions later.
Right, okay. I mean, it's interesting. We discussed what we're going to talk about last week and sometime before, but when I looked at this morning again at the title, it says engaging and supporting online students. In a sense, I suppose my talk is what comes before. And before that comes engaging and supporting online teachers. And that's really the point I'm going to make, because I'm a first-time user. I was designated to develop a third-year marketing unit before my annual leave in 2015-16. I was quite excited. I'm committed to blended learning, have won a teaching award for discussion board run assessment on a much earlier platform. I don't think anyone's old enough here to remember Elegant Solutions. And so I was quite optimistic about committing to this. Having had experience of dealing with Soul, where they take all your stuff and make it look pretty, and by professional writers and technicians, and where you're actually only left to moderate, it all seemed, going to be quite easy peasy. I did some preliminary talking to others, found some options and went on holidays. OUA is different. Here the academic not only organises the content, but also has the freedom to design the online function of the program with the assistance of the online resource persons. In short, academics have a lot of freedom in this process. One is confronted with a lolly shop of ideas and possible online techniques. You just have to look at the websites. It was overwhelming. There was technical help available, and all I had to do was ask for help to set it all up. This created my first challenge, understanding what works well, what doesn't work at all. I needed a primer for starting off, the wisdom of the elders, with apologies to Sean McAuliffe, be encouraged to take baby steps rather than trying to graduate to secondary college. None of this could be found on the wiki, which was full of notes of what I had to do, but didn't actually tell me what should be my first step. The problem with Ask Us Anything and We Can Help is that one doesn't know what one doesn't know. The unknown unknowns. I would have liked to have had access to examples of websites, different examples of what was possible, perhaps meet other OUA teachers. And I had 4 weeks to do it. But I would have liked to have had, I did actually get in touch with some in my faculty by ringing around and finding out who was doing online stuff, but our academic group does not have a uniform approach to OUA, although I later found out a lot of other faculties and groups actually do. What I've learned from my 1 and a bit semester experience is that online education is the triumvirate between technology, the convener and the e-tutor. I can't stress enough the importance of this relationship, and it's an equal relationship, and I'm not sure that was quite my experience in the beginning. Nobody's fault, it was just the way things were. Clear and constant communication is a must. I would like to see a more equal relationship at a start, working together, not having to come up with the right questions to get help. Perhaps the learning resource person should be encouraged to ask me questions. You sure you want to do this? Are you sure this is what you should be doing? The first thing to realise is that online is not on campus or even blended learning, and any unit design needs to take this into consideration. Certain types of assessments can be problematic. A lot of our assessment is developing strategic marketing plans for clients who are likely to be operating in Victoria, if your students are overseas and somewhere else in Australia. It's easier to get quiet or shy students to speak up in class, and easier to note when they don't understand something because they sort of glaze over, or they don't look up from their Facebook. This is much harder online. The question is, are online students who are quiet understanding it all, or are they just understanding absolutely nothing? I'm also aware that written instructions and comments can be misunderstood. So what was the result of my adventure into OUA land? Well, I had it set up, made the appropriate adjustments to the assessment, and it looked okay. My manager even congratulated me. They looked pretty logical and set up. But given that we started off with an estimated 40 students and ended up with 80, when the term started, I failed the communication challenge, absolutely. The sessional tutor was engaged after 2 or 3 weeks, and Daniel became the hero of the day. Ask Daniel anything was his online motto. Those first 3 weeks of not getting on top of the communication, however, took their toll, and the unit reviews were not brilliant, except for Daniel's. However, only 3 students dropped out of the 80. The students' work was better than the one I had on campus, on campus in general, and some of their reflections, what they learned and how they could already use it and already applied it, etc., was terribly encouraging, because that's the practical side of the subject I teach. Luckily, nothing stayed the same. There's, of course, continuous improvement, and more recently, I managed to attend the first OUA community of practice. What a revelation of sharing an open conversation. The wiki has also changed. It's still a bit of a lolly shop, though. I've now been in a position of passing an OUA unit to someone else, and it has reinforced in me the adjustments that need to be made to assessments, etc., especially when I'm handing it over to somebody else. Whilst on a campus unit, Blackboard can be sometimes updated weekly, there's a bit of give and take. Online students do want it all up front. They want to know what's going on in week 12. They want to know everything. And that's fair enough. They're busy people, they have to plan their lives. And when to run Collaborate? We ran absolutely none in semester 1. No one complained or noted this. And what will happen next semester when new staff are appointed? Here's my 5-point plan. Learn to work with your learning resource person. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Remember, the smartest person in the room asks the dumbest questions. Good advice. Best advice might come from other academic areas, and that means walking across John Street sometimes and finding other people. Work as a team. Ask to shadow other OUA sites before embarking on your own. The best units are those where the discipline works together and is consistent. Take care in your handover and treat your session with kindness. Actually, that's 7 points anyway. It won't be right the first time, but it will get better. And I take a lot of courage from talking to my maths colleagues who have been at this for a while. Thank you. And now I'll hand over to Bopa, who is my sessional. So I brought her along because she can talk from experience.
Thanks. So Liz, how many minutes have I got? Oh, that's good. Okay, so I'm the... Barbara handed over the unit to the new convener. 2 weeks ago, I got the phone call. Bopa, would you like to join our team? Oh, great, I thought. I haven't taught this subject before. I have dabbled in OUA, so, let's see how it goes with this new subject. So, Brenton, I want to mention the fact that tutors are really important. You mentioned that in your research, student liked the fact that tutor could add some value, and that was important to them. So I thought, all right, I'm the tutor, what am I going to do? Usually we get a week, 2 weeks to get ready. If we're not comfortable with the OUA platform, what do we do? So the main thing I wanted to get out of this was that, okay, I think that's been mentioned a number of times, the relationship between the convener, the tutor, and the technology. I think that's really, really important. So I needed to talk to my convener, who at this stage wasn't very familiar with the OUA platform. So luckily, Barbara stepped in and stayed on as the convener for the time being. So even though she says she's handed it over, I'm still considering Barbara as being the convener for this subject this semester. So as a tutor starting, I thought, okay, what am I supposed to be doing here? What should I be doing? If we're not sure what we're supposed to be doing, it's not going to be very good for students. So my first thought was, all right, tell me what I'm supposed to do. What is my job description? How do I get from, all right, I know about strategic marketing, but how do I get this across to students? How can I teach them something on this platform? And as Barbara said, when you're doing face-to-face, you can see their faces. You can see, oh, I'm glazed over. I've got no idea what you're talking about. Tell me again. I can do that. I actually, before I came here, I looked up to see how many students actually engaged with Blackboard for this subject. We've got 32 enrolled. I've got 6, and this is towards the end of week 3, 6 have never logged onto Blackboard yet. No. This is just the students. I'm not counting all the other peripheral staff members. I'm just counting the students.
I got a dear student from you.
Okay. But no, these are... I do send out dear student, but this is across the board. But when I looked at these, there was just 6 specific students saying hadn't engaged before. There are a few who are voyeurs. They sort of, they log on, but they don't contribute. They don't say anything. So the task is to actually trying to create some engagement. But the key thing is that we need some training. We have no idea what we're doing. So what do we do? One of the things that would have helped me a lot was, okay, I had 2 weeks to try and to do this. Was there some training of what I'm supposed to do? Was there some training that I could do before semester started, the study period started? So perhaps something that says, okay, 3 weeks before the study period starts, these are the sort of things we need to have on board, learning and transformation people on board to help people get on top of things. We don't know. That's the problem. There may be some stuff, but new sessional staff who are coming on board to this platform have no idea that it exists. So
they're also hired in the last minute.
Yes.
The policy sessionals virtually get the gong on the week before. So it makes it a bit hard.
So we have no idea what we're supposed to do here. So one of the things is that also, do we have different types of training? Do we have training for new people who have no idea about the OUA platform? Training for tutors versus conveners. We do different things. We have different needs. So are these supposed to be something that we need to put in place, especially for tutors? Conveners, that's someone else's domain. Also, the technical aspects of it is one thing. So we talked about collaborate. Brenton talked about collaborate and the importance of collaborate. Now, there's training for collaborate on how to run a collaborate session at the end of this week. Now, this is week 3. I'm supposed to be running a collaborate session next week. I've got no idea what I'm doing. So it would have been nicer to know what I was supposed to be doing beforehand. So the other thing is, now collaborate sessions are something that we have trouble coming to terms with. When we have face-to-face tutorial, we can see how many people, usually most of them turn up. With collaborate session, I hear that if you have 40 students and if you have 4 turn up to the collaborate session, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? We don't know. What are we supposed to be aiming for? Can we get help on how to get people to actually turn up? Can we get help to actually get people to actually participate, engagement? We're talking about engagement, but the tutor who is not experienced needs help to actually have some techniques and some strategies to actually engage these students. So what's good, what's bad? How do we fix it? So thank you. And so really, I just wanted to close, to finish off and say, please, we do need the training. And the key thing is with the training, we need to have the triumvirate, as Barbara called it, between the convener, the discussion with the convener, the tutor, and the technology, with help from the Learning and Transformation Group. Thank you.
And now to something completely, different but supportive. Over the couple of days of this conference, I've been thinking about what an awesome place Australia is and how lucky we are to be in a country which has got lots of distance and vast inhospitable spaces, because I think that this has helped us come to where we are now. And I think especially of a woman called Adelaide, back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, who was going around the inland and watching how children in the various cattle stations learnt, the correspondence school children. And she recognised that correspondence material was very, very dull. The students weren't engaged. They were very, very shy. But she also noticed that they were very good users of technology in the form of using the pedal radios that belonged to the Royal Flying Doctor Service, because they all had access to that. And the upshot was that she found a way. She set up the the Alice Springs School of the Air. And that the aim of that was to bring the isolated children out of the silence and to give them a sense of belonging through developing relationships. And moving right along now, here we are. So distance education there and now is a means of opening up educational opportunities to people who otherwise would be unable to take part. And this sends a shiver down my spine every time I think about this, because this is what we're doing for the OUA students. Many of them they might have left school at the age of 14, 20 years ago, and now finally they can enrol, they can pay their money, and they can have access to tertiary education. And what we do with that lot of students is what we're all talking about over these couple of days, and particularly now. And of course, when I think about that, I think about the library support. And when I started my job 10 years ago, I was pretty much able to write my own brief. But of course, the library was an early adopter of technology and was moving in the direction of online provision of services, had been doing it for a lot of years. So it was all mostly good, or increasingly good. At first, I felt that I was a little bit of a squeaky wheel because things just hadn't been put in place. There was no such thing as streaming media. There was no such thing as ebooks 10 years ago that were available to us. But I also thought about how we create beautiful physical spaces and provide support to our on-campus students and skills classes, and I was thinking about how we could do this for our online students and what I could do online. So as far as access to library resources go, our library now has around 90% of our material online. We only have 10% on our shelves. And that 90% includes several 100,000 ebooks. So over 90% of our library's unique titles are available as ebooks, and we also subscribe to almost 400 databases. And that really helps. So our online students are no longer the poor relations in terms of library resources, because our on-campus students use all of these online resources as well. I do spend a fair amount of my time ensuring that required readings, as far as ebook chapters are concerned, have as stable access as possible, because sometimes this can be a little bit thorny, and it depends on the publisher, because I think the publishers are just dipping their toes into this environment, trying to work out how they're going to gain money from it. So it continues to be interesting. Our website is continually improving. If I've got time, I'm not sure if I've got time to get the library website up and talk at the same time. It's continually improving, and I hope you've all noticed. Our subject materials service makes sure that the university complies with Part 5B of the Copyright Act, and the materials service can scan up to 10% of a chapter of a book 10% or a chapter of a book on request. 10% can be more than one chapter, depending on how long the chapters are. So no longer, I hope, do OUA or other online academics have great lists of print book titles in Blackboard and expect their students to be able to read or access them from their local public library. Local public libraries, oh good, the library website's up, that's fantastic. You can see how good it looks. Or I hope they don't. Over the years, academics have mainly come to identify a core reading or a chapter and get it scanned and linked to it in Blackboard at the point where they want the students to read it, and I think that's really important. I think they're more likely to read it if the link is there at the point of need. When we learnt, and I have to say to our horror, that students wanted to read our scanned material on their phones and they complained that the scan quality was poor, we overcame our horror and we investigated and we changed our scanning standards. So now the scanned chapters can be read on their phones. Although we are finding that there are still some students who like to print them out and do all their highlighting and all that sort of thing. We just thought, how could a student read it on their phone? That's just so non-academic. They've got to be able to highlight the important bits. But it just means that everybody gets a good scan, a much better scan. We're linking to journal articles. Most of our journal collection, of course, is online, and our linking instructions are also online, and we're happy to help with that. Swinburne Commons and provision of streaming media, including transcripts on request. The Commons, the rise of the Swinburne Commons has been really invaluable over the last several years. We also subscribe to some databases of streaming media, so no longer are students expected to watch a DVD on campus. So this is really good for all. The streaming media has just been amazing. And I can just remember how clunky it used to be. We used to have to request a DVD and get permission to have it reformatted, stripped and streamed, and the process was so expensive and took so long, it was ghastly. We also use analytics in the library. We know how the students search and we know what they're looking at, and we're continually working on how to improve their search results. We do find, and this is a good thing too, that if you can see the library website up there, students can just start searching by typing keywords or copying and pasting a title into that search box, and they should come up with good results. It also will find, books, ebooks, media, articles. It also finds reviews, which I'm not so crazy about, but they're all there. And the students can then refine by their preferred format. And it really can be very easy. And undergraduate students may indeed never actually get into our databases. They'll find very good material just through searching in the search box. Referencing help. As you can see, we've got a link to referencing on our front page. We support Harvard, APA and AGLC3 styles, and our support has really increased. In fact, what we've done more recently in the last few months is each of these styles now has a video just to help the students get started in that particular style. So there's heaps and heaps of support for referencing. We have other ways of supporting online students. On our website, you can see contact. If the students click on contact, they'll be able to find our phone details so they can ring us up, and we've also got a library at swin.edu.au. That's just like Ask a Librarian service, and I coordinate an amazing team of librarians who are rostered on, and that's a 7-day-a-week roster. So on campus, all right, we sometimes get students saying, look, I'm on level 5 and the person next to me is talking on the phone, come up and tell them to shut up. But generally it's something a little bit more than that. We've had our library clips rolling out this year. Now these are just very short videos. In fact, I don't think we've got any from the first page here, but if your students are in Blackboard and they happen to look at the top of Blackboard and see the link to the library, we've got 6 of our library clips on there, and I think one of them is finding an ebook, for example, or finding a journal article. And these are very, very short clips, and we've worked very, very hard on our scripting. They're very slick, and we've employed a young actor to do the video and the talk over, so it's a lovely young voice telling the students what to do. I'm enrolled in all the OUA Blackboard units, and I do get emails saying, dear Susan, you haven't been in this website yet. Is there a problem? So thank you for those, if I've received them. I create library guides or tutorials on request. I do focus on the large enrolment first year units. I'm a discussion thread in some units. I occasionally co-moderate, collaborate sessions, although I'm still trying to work out application sharing. It is a sustainability purpose that I do restrict my energies to the large enrolment first years. I have been asked about Facebook, and yes, I follow a few groups of students, mainly Swinburne Online, but this is mainly for intelligence purposes. I just like to dip in occasionally and see what they're talking about. So I'm sure there are more things that I do to support online students, but this should do. Did I turn that off? Oh, okay. Yes, there are more things that I do, but this'll do just for an overview.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody on the panel. I love I love the way that you brought together the topics of supporting online students and also supporting online teachers, and this great diversity across the different faculties and operational areas of Swinburne. We ran a little bit late coming into this session, so I'm going to allow time for a couple of questions if anybody has something they'd like to bring up. Just quickly, we've got about 2-3 minutes left. I know there was a lot in there. Something that came up for me is the conversation about there actually being an online student and an online teacher identity that is different to a face-to-face. And I think that that's an important conversation to be having when we're talking about blend being the new normal. And, you know, the online it's still different to that. And there's really different issues and implications for the students and for the teaching staff working in this program. So I thought you guys brought that up really well. So that was more of a statement, but would you like to comment on whether you actually, any of you do see online teaching as a particular identity within the Swinburne ecosystem?
This lady over there wanted to ask a question. Maybe she should ask the question first.
Let's go. Sorry.
I'm happy to.
Okay. I just wanted to know, with the tutors going online 6 days a week, if there's a schedule so that people know when the tutor's actually going to be online so that they can try and coordinate with the tutor.
Yeah, well, yeah, with our discussion boards, we have 2 tutors rostered on, and as I said, it's that 6 days a week, and it usually is that the tutors work out between themselves which of the 6 days suits their needs as well. And after a couple of weeks, the students actually get to recognise, if I'm going in on a Tuesday, you know, that tutor has already been in early, you know, so I'm going to need to wait until the next day to get my response, you know, but it's always within that 24 hours. But there's a lot of students that come in, say, at 8 o'clock at night, because they've been working full time, they then start their studies, ask their questions, and so some of our tutors will go in then at 11 o'clock at night, and so the students have got a response within about an hour.
So there's no actual set schedule for the students to know when the tutor's going to be
No,
going?
they just know that that the tutors will be there sometime during the day, and our tutors don't just log in once. You know, if they're rostered on for that day, you know, most of them, or when I've done it myself, I would go in the morning, lunchtime, before I left work, and then I'd probably go in at about 9 o'clock at night. You know, so the day is the day. So although it's you know, limited in hours, it might only take me 15 or 20 minutes at each time, but then I'm capturing that whole day and being able to answer the questions as quickly as possible, because, as you said, the timely response is paramount.
Hi, I'm just wondering what support you have for more vulnerable students or at-risk students, namely First Nations students, who I know a lot of them study online. And if you support them directly, or if you have, I'm assuming that you would probably have a team of people helping you. So First Peoples, but also students from non-English speaking backgrounds while studying online.
Do you want me to take that? As with the on-campus units, we've heard about the learning analytics. So we've got that in place, and we can track students as well. But also too, and I failed to mention this in the beginning, OUA have their own support for students. You know, so we have the link to the OUA website as well to remind students to keep updating that. They've got counselling services, they've got study support and things like that as well. So it's actually a two-pronged. It's not OUA just handing them over and doing nothing else. It's working with them to say, we've found that the students are asking this type of question. How can they get online counselling, or how can they get in contact with someone that can help them with a specific issue? And Brenton's.
Got a question from Brenton.
No, I just wanted to add to that, because supporting students is quite an interesting topic, and I happened to offer to another student to catch up about a topic yesterday, and she said to me that she had transferred from a university to do OUA work, and in her 3 years of study, I was the first student who'd actually reached out and said, "You seem like you're having an issue, do you want to catch up?" And she really appreciated it. So there is an option, there is an argument for actually involving other students in sort of encouraging us to interact, I think, and help each other.
Can I also make a quick comment? Over the years, I have helped quite a number of students with their particular research needs, finding material in the library, and some of these have been incarcerated students, students with disabilities. No First Nation person has actually identified themselves, but I'm happy to really, give anybody a little bit of extra assistance in finding material for assignment topics as they need it, if they do approach me.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, we just have one here. Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment. I just wanted to make a comment that in regards to the communication, online is asynchronous. And it's really important. And I think what I've learnt from doing it for quite a few years now, the very beginning, you'd get email after email, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you haven't responded, 2 o'clock, etc. And they don't always realise that we're sessional, that we're casual. We might be at different unis, etc. And so the level of communication was actually about expectations. So if you communicate your expectations, I ended up creating an online cartoon puppet that gave my welcome video of all that sort of stuff, and never have I had an issue now from student feedback in regards to, getting responses. And I very rarely will respond same day, because it's about work-life balance and that. But I will always get back to them by that second day, and I get that as feedback. So, it is asynchronous, but it's about managing student expectations and your own workload.
Yeah, I agree. In our getting started information on our particular website, we've got a responsibilities and expectations document. What can the students expect from us and what we expect from them? So we do try and provide a lot of information about how can we use this forum to work together to further their studies.
Thank you for all your questions. I think the one around setting expectations is a wonderful note to end on, because I think that's very important in the online space and in the learning and teaching space more generally, around our interaction and engagement with students. I'd like to thank all our panel for a really rich discussion, and also commend them for Brenton being placed first on the panel and working from the student perspective on from that. I think that's a really lovely positioning for the panel, and I hope you join me in thanking them for a fantastic session.